Within the larger Abrahamic family, both Christianity and Judaism shine alongside their siblings, like Islam, the Azali and Baha'i faiths, Samaritanism, Mandaism, and Rastafarianism, all rife with intellectual vibrancy and rich histories which spring from the same intellectual water springs of Jerusalem.
Wow. Nah, I did not know that Rastafarianism and all of those other things were basically like a branch off of Christianity and Judaism. Wow, I did not know that. That is actually really cool. Suggestion to me.
Judaism and Christianity are two of the world's three major Abrahamic religions. Despite having thousands of years of shared history and cohabitation across dozens of countries across the globe, these two religions are often seen as rigidly distinct from one another. However, when Christianity was born in the 1st century CE, it was exclusively composed of Jews in Palestine. Yet in the centuries that followed, as the young Christian faith spread across the Greco-Roman world, the Christian community grew apart from its Jewish roots. Before long, the two faiths were received by each other and by others as distinct religions.
Wow.
When did this happen, and under what circumstances? In this video, we will attempt to find the answer to this question. In this journey, we will uncover how the Roman Empire influenced the two faiths, how they came to perceive each other, and how they kept in contact with each other. Welcome to our video on how Christianity and Judaism went their separate ways, all same Song of Songs. This video is sponsored by our YouTube members and videos, crusades, and much more. To a special faith diverged from its Jewish roots. We need to understand what both faiths looked like in the 1st century CE, when Christianity emerged. During this century, the Mediterranean basin was dominated by the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire had two main languages, with Latin predominating in the western half of the empire and Greek predominating throughout the eastern half. Thus, since the majority of Jews in both Palestine and the diaspora lived in the eastern half of the Roman Empire, they were in constant contact with Hellenistic philosophies. When Christianity was born, an incredible array of cultural and religious diversity oozed all over the eastern Mediterranean. From prophets like Apollonius of Tyana teaching a brand of mysticism based on Pythagorean philosophy, to the philosophical teachings of Stoicism and Neoplatonism, there was much religious cross-pollination which influenced the many diverse sects of Judaism and Christianity that existed during this period.
Okay.
In the 1st century CE, Judaism was in its second temple period, with the faith being focused around the temple in Jerusalem, in particular the sacrifices and pilgrimages which were held in or to this holy site. However, a variety of
This is what I know about Judaism, actually. I don't know much about Judaism, so this video is actually quite interesting. All I know is that, I might be wrong, but all I know is that the Jews believed that Jesus didn't fulfill his prophecy when he came.
Streams of Jewish thought emerged in response.
They viewed Jesus in a really negative light.
To Greek and Roman religious influence and political control, as Jewish law and ritual had to adapt to new lifestyles and political systems, as well as varying attitudes to the use of the Second Temple. These included the Pharisees, predecessors of rabbinical Jews, who saw less use in the Temple of Jerusalem, as well as the aristocratic Sadducees, who preached the temple's importance, the apocalyptic Essenes, who lived in communes, and the anti-Roman zealot rebels, who saw rebelling and achieving freedom from Roman rule as a priority. Many Jewish sects that existed during this time were explicitly political, revolving as much around theological matters as they did around how to organize one's social life, family structure, and their relationship to surrounding non-Jewish ethnic and religious groups. Thus, given that there were so many sects of Judaism influenced by so many Hellenistic philosophies, Christianity, a religion born from Judaism, was also bound to be a very diverse religion at its onset.
Okay,
Indeed, much
so
like its
Christianity came from Judaism. Now that is something that I did not know.
Jewish parent religion, Christianity had divided into many different sects within a century of its inception, with each sect harboring different interpretations of how to define its relationship to Jesus and Jesus' relationship with the divine. To modern Christians, many of these early Christian sects would appear incredibly alien, with very different canons, ways of thinking, and approaches to ritual and cosmology.
Yeah. The Bible, I think I said this before in my Islam video, the Bible is quite different. I had someone disagreed with me that the Bible never changed. In fact, I've heard many people who claim that they have like more original older copies of pages from like older Bibles, and it's way different. Let me tell you something. I heard that I heard someone who claimed to be one of those people who had an original, like, older copy of the Bible, and they said that the whole, like, God being like, he said, like, yes, God is a merciful God, but he said, like, the whole God being extremely soft, he said that was just, like, made up by blasphemous people. Like, for example, he said in his original copy of the Bible, actually, he said that, like, for example, if someone does something to harm you on purpose, right? Like, I don't know, let's say someone tries to, like, mess with your life, like try to ruin your life or something. Just imagine someone doing something on purpose to mess with your life. He said that in today's Bible, God would just say, oh, well, forgive and forget. But he said in the older Bible, the actual Bible, that's not what it actually says. He literally says that God says to smite them and to chastise them some way, and basically to punish them in your own way. Punish them in your own way. Not like, like not unalive them, but, punish them, right? It sound, the way how you describe it, it was complete 180. It sounded a bit cruel, frankly speaking. But I wouldn't be too surprised, because, guys, think about it like this, and I hear a lot of people who try to paint God out as this, super sunshine rainbows, type of deity, and it's true, but a lot of people are forgetting that God is also a very ruthless God when he has to be. In fact, if you read the Bible plenty of times, the Bible literally says the wrath of God. You like, the Bible talks about the wrath of God so many times. Like, you literally have to fear the wrath of God, and a lot of people tend to, like, overlook that. So when I heard that guy who had the copy, who claimed that he had like a part of the copy of the original Bible, and he said this is what God actually says to deal with people that I just talked about, like liars and like just bad people overall, and it sounded a bit cruel. I just sat down and thought about it. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a minute. When you think about it, look at what God did in Egypt, right? Look at what God did in Egypt when he was telling the Pharaoh to let Moses' people go. What did he do? He went and he unalived every single firstborn child, right? Just like that. Look at Noah and the ark. He literally went and unalived basically the entire earth, aside from Noah. Okay? Plenty of times the Bible literally states that you have to fear God, and a lot of people don't understand that. So before you come in my comments talking about that doesn't make any sense because God is like this and God is like that, dude, put the pieces together. Now, if you want to believe that what I heard from that guy, you can. I honestly took it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, considering the things that God has actually done in the actual Bible, I was like, that actually might have some merit to it. Like, he actually might have some, like, legitimate, because think about it, guys. I'm like yapping a bit too much, and I'm gonna continue in a second, but think about it. It doesn't make sense how modern Christianity today, you'll see people who say, oh my goodness, God is such a loving God, blah blah blah, God says to do this when someone does something heinous, but then turn around, completely contradict that by saying, oh my goodness, you have to fear God, God is a ruthless God. Like, it has to be one or the other. Again, I'm not saying that God isn't both, but I'm saying there's a lot of contradictions, and I wouldn't be too shocked if blasphemous people came and cherry pick certain aspects of the Bible, which is mostly why the Bible has changed throughout the centuries. A lot of cherry picking when it was being translated has occurred, so now it's different, frankly speaking.
These developments were taking place in a time of increasing religious diversity in the Roman Empire, as new faiths like Gnosticism and Mithraism grew popular within certain sects of society, coexisting with the existing pantheons of Rome, Greece, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. During this time, Christianity and Judaism were just two among many regional cults that existed throughout the empire. Oftentimes, Roman state policies from this era lumped the two religions together. However, Rome sometimes divided the two religions legally, such as with Emperor Nerva's exemption of Christians from Jewish-specific taxes. This was evidence that the two religious communities had begun diverging enough that the Roman regime had begun to see them as distinct from one another, if not as separate religions entirely, then as separate sects of the same mother faith. With this context in mind, let us now discuss the story of how the two religions ended up separating entirely. Christianity was born in the 1st century CE and was a child of the region of Judea. Its original community in Jerusalem was almost exclusively Jewish, as far as we can tell. However, the faith began to
obviously Jesus was a Jew, so
spread, and non-Jewish people began to practice and join in Christian rituals. Things like this had happened before. Even before the emergence of Christianity, there had been Gentile pagans who were sympathetic to Judaism and practiced aspects of it without fully converting to Judaism.
Hi, I'm JT, and
However, the role of Jesus as the Messiah complicated religious matters because it was unclear if he was a universal or a Jewish-specific Messiah. Thus, many schools of thought existed within the early church on how non-Jewish converts should be integrated into the Christian faith. Some groups insisted that non-Jewish converts to Christianity had to practice the rite of circumcision and observe Jewish law in order to practice Christianity. Thus, as Christianity spread to new places like Antioch, more Gentiles started to join in the movement, and there was increased friction among the young Christian community as to whether these new non-Jewish converts' lack of adherence to Jewish law excluded them from the faith. This is one of the reasons behind the First Council in Jerusalem, where various in-between positions emerge, such as those of Paul of Tarsus, one of the biggest apostles of Christianity in the 1st century CE. Paul emphasized converting Gentiles, seeing it as a duty of Christians due to a new covenant they had with God. Paul ended up convincing a large section of the early Christian community that, while Jews ought to continue to uphold Jewish law, Gentiles were not required to do so. This brought equilibrium to the Jewish and non-Jewish sections of the early Christian community, as well as recognition of the varieties of Jesus movements that existed. While scholars debate as to whether it was Paul himself who began the emphasis on Jesus as a Messiah not just for Jews but the whole world, it cannot be argued that his writings reflect these early divisions that would play a role in the divergent paths of Judaism and Christianity. At the turn of the 2nd century CE, a series of massive upheavals changed the Judeo-Christian world forever. These were the Jewish Revolt of 66 to 64 CE, the Kitos War of 115 to 117 CE, and the Bar Kokhba Revolt of 136 to 138 CE, which ended in the brutal depopulation of Jews from Palestine. During these revolts,
should I talk about that issue here? Should I talk about it? I don't know if I should. Honestly, I've been refraining from talking about, this region and the current crisis going on in this region right now. I don't know if I should talk about it here. I don't know. Because a certain country that is in that region that rhymes with Philistine when you say that name, you get shadow banned by YouTube. I don't know. I don't think I should talk about that here. Maybe another time.
began to diverge from the Jewish community in the eyes of the Romans, due to the aforementioned revolts happening mostly within the Jewish community, with the Christians largely staying out of it. During the Jewish revolts, it was the Jews who were persecuted, while the Christians flew under the radar. However, throughout the 2nd and 3rd centuries CE, the script was flipped. Now it was Christians being persecuted and Jews escaping Rome's notice. During this time, Jews were often exempt from the persecutions that the Roman government inflicted upon the growing Christian community, further emphasizing how the Romans had come to see the various sects of Judaism and Christianity as two separate faiths. However, sometimes the two were still persecuted together, alongside other groups like the Manichaeans. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE caused chaos amongst the various Jewish communities in the region of Palestine. Many Jewish groups, like the Sadducees, declined due to the temple's destruction, while the Pharisees were set on their own unique trajectory. This trajectory included the slow development of the Mishnah and Tosefta, two compendiums of oral Jewish law, whose need for interpretive analysis drove the rise of the rabbis as a religious class without connection to a Jewish temple. As these Jewish communities evolved and changed, some of them began to critique Christianity vocally, seeing it as heretical in nature. These were some of the first clear lines being drawn from the Jewish side of the equation. On the Christian side of the equation, theological texts and gospels attributed to apostles emerged with different attitudes towards Judaism. Some leading Christian figures during this time, such as the preacher Marcion, sought to reject any Jewish associations with the Christian faith, denouncing the recognition of the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament as part of the Christian canon. This likely happened as an attempt to solve the theological conundrums, like how God can be seemingly cruel in the Hebrew Bible while having a different personality among Christian literature.
That's literally what I was talking about earlier. So in this video, you see, that's basically guys. This is why I'm always open-minded. Didn't I just say that earlier in the video? The Bible has been changed so much that there's so much contradictions. I believe that's a big problem of why people don't take Christianity seriously, because all of these contradictions that are happening, and it's just a really bad look. But what did I told you earlier in the video? What did I tell you?
Other Christian religions had begun to form, but also that some people still merged the two faiths even after these intellectual boundaries were formed. On the Christian side of the equation, there were changes in attitudes due to the growing number of Gentiles in Christian circles and the increasing political prominence of the faith. On the one hand, Judaism and the Old Testament gave Christianity an ancient lineage that gave it legitimacy. On the other hand, as the Christians grew in power and influence, their more critical views of Judaism often led them to distance themselves from their parent faith. For instance, Ignatius of Antioch, a 1st to 2nd century CE patriarch, argued about various shifts, like moving the day off from the Sabbath or Saturday to the Lord's Day or Sunday. In addition, many Christian writers sought to draw people to exclusive Christian worship, making the case that Judaism was now obsolete. While modern scholars debate whether or not Christianity was ever designed to supersede or replace Judaism in the original Gospels, later Christian communities ended up developing some less than savory beliefs about Judaism. For instance, John Chrysostom in the 3rd and 4th century CE made several accusations against Christians who also went to synagogues using anti-Semitic tropes. As these boundaries began to solidify...
no, my goodness. I don't want the algorithm to think that this video is... I don't want the algorithm to think that this video is controversial when it's not. Using those bad words, kings and generals, I don't want to get demonetized.
Sides, and as Christianity began to become more established, Jewish Christians became less and less common in the Eastern Mediterranean. Thus, the fascinating sects of the Ebionites or Alkasites began to dissipate. However, the former may have ended up in Arabia and influenced early Islam, and the latter may have been the sect from which Manichaeism, the Great Silk Road religion, stemmed from. By the 3rd and especially the 4th centuries CE, Christianity and Judaism had built distinct foundations which divided themselves from one another. Moreover, the political evolution of the Roman Empire during these centuries served to drift the two siblings further apart. The adoption of Christianity by the Roman Empire was truly the cusp of an era. It was Emperor Constantine who legalized the Christian faith, so his stance towards the Christian religion is fairly self-evident. However, historians are unsure of what his views on Judaism were. However, later emperors of Rome applied laws to differentiate the two faiths, evidencing their further separation from one another. As Christianity became stronger, it became more restrictive towards Judaism. Moreover, by this time, rabbinical leadership within the Jewish community was becoming more entrenched, and with it, the distinct practices that set Judaism apart from Christianity. With that said, cross-fertilization between the two religions still persisted. For instance, in Carthage, Christian and Jewish scholars shared a certain kinship with one another, for they used similar arguments to denounce pagan idolatry. In addition, archaeological research in the Roman provinces of Palestine during the 3rd and 4th centuries presided over a surge in the building of churches. Jewish synagogues were still being built in the region as well, showing us that the two communities continued to live side by side.
This is interesting. This is very interesting. Although I don't really think that they were ever Christian. I don't want to say the J word. I'm gonna say Judaism. I don't think there was ever Christian Judaism wars, like how you had the Crusades from the Ottomans and the Holy Wars and one. I don't think there was ever anything like that, right?
By John Chrysostom also suggest that some Jewish-Christian hybridization continued even as late as this period. However, it seems that Jewish Christians were mostly extinct as a community distinct from both their siblings.
Wow.
The following centuries show that the divisions were finalized, despite debates and...
Dude, that is insane. So, Judaism was the OG Abrahamic religion, and then now everyone just... Christianity came, and Islam came, now everyone is wow. Wow. No one really talks about Judaism, now that I think about it. It's always Islam or Christianity. No one talks about Judaism. Now that makes me curious about Judaism. Very curious about Judaism. I would like to see, because if Judaism was the first Abrahamic religion, I would love to see what that would have to say. Surely that would have a lot to say, right?
And discussions between the two faiths, for now they saw themselves as separate from each other. By the 6th and 7th century, another Abrahamic sibling had appeared, Islam. Due to Christianity's role in perpetuating anti-Semitic sentiments against Jews, the coming of Islam was a relief for many communities in the Near East. The Islamic conquests took control of the Near East and caused social changes, but it is obvious from how the notion of the people of the book, who were afforded certain rights due to common Abrahamic origins, or al-Kitab, developed, that Jews and Christians were their own separate groups by that time. These distinctions would continue to grow as both faiths continued their odysseys through history. And so it was that Jewish and Christian communities were split up fully, the former in distinct communities shining like diamonds on the world map, the latter like fields of flowers spreading like a sea over the planet's surface. Within the larger Abrahamic family, both Christianity and Judaism shine alongside their siblings, like Islam, the Azali and Baha'i faiths, Samaritanism, Mandaism, and Rastafarianism, all rife with intellectual vibrancy and rich histories which spring from the same intellectual water springs of Jerusalem.
Wow. Nah, I did not know that Rastafarianism and all of those other things were basically like a branch off of Christianity and Judaism. Wow, I did not know that. That is actually really cool.
This commonality is perhaps best described by some of the oldest sacred and erotic poetry, the Song of Songs, attributed to Solomon, in which Christians and Jews exclaim, "Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave, it burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame." More videos on religious history are on the way. To ensure you don't miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button.
Learning a lot here about all of these different other faiths. Very, 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 very interesting. Honestly, in my personal opinion, if you just believe in God, you're okay. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we literally just have is just faith, and that's it. Until God comes back and explains everything to us, the best that we can do is just believe God in our best way. So I don't really care what you believe in, as long as you believe in God. That's a chat. Okay, I'm completely okay with you, which is why you kind of see me more or less being respectful whenever I react to like Islam or like any Abrahamic religion. Now, if I react to something like an atheist, my attitude would be a lot more different. Believe me, it would be a lot more different. Anyways, man, you made it all the way here. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, just comment it down below. But at this point, I'm just doing videos that are just all suggested to me. I keep getting so many suggestions over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So hard to keep track of them, but I'm trying my best. Anyways, thank you for watching and goodbye.